There we go. Maki, over to you.
Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you very much for coming to this International Women's Week seminar on women and peace building in Cyprus. So this is one of the seminars which interlinked with our one-hour campaign, Women, Peace and Security Agenda. And in this seminar that you will hear that we invited for activists and experts from Cyprus. All of them are members of intercommunal women's organization called Hands Across the Divide. And we can learn from them about their activities on peace building in Cyprus. And as I said, that we have 4 speakers, and then everyone speak about 10 to 15 minutes. So I just want to introduce everyone to start with. So our first speaker is Katie Claridis, and she's the honorary president of the board of Claridis Institute, and which offers free leadership and mediation skills training mainly to young people and women. And she has previously served as MP and also served as commissioner for humanitarian affairs of the Cyprus government. And Katie has been active in promoting contact and reconciliations between Greek and Turkish Cypriots for a long time. And our second speaker, Sofia Pavlostavlou, is she has recently published a dissertation, Women's Organization for Peace, Moving Beyond the Rhetoric of Cyprus program. And this was a result of 7 years of field research in a frozen conflict zone. And Sophia is currently holding the role of gender technical specialist with World Vision Canada. And the third speaker, Pembe Mendes, she was born in Australia to Turkish Cypriot parents, and she is a communication expert with over 20 years of experience in media, public affairs, campaigning, and project management. And also she worked on various peace building initiatives with a focus on media, gender, youth, and communities. And as a campaigner, she is a supporter of women's rights and has been contributed to civil society. And the last speaker is Katie Economico, and she was born in Nicosia, and also she has got her personal experience of family being destroyed in the 1974 war. And because of her experience, that she made a conscious decision to dedicate her life to the promotion of peace. And she's been training by communal groups in conflict resolution and mediation since 1995. And she funded several initiatives, including by communal choir and other peace initiatives, because Katie is also a trained singer. So we have these 4 fantastic speakers, and then and after their presentation, we will have a Q&A session. Okay, so can I hand over to Katie first?
Katie, I think you need, oh, there it is.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, we're muting and unmuting at the same time. Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you all this afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me. What I thought I'd do is just basically give you an outline of the landscape of the challenges that women activists and peace builders have faced in Cyprus, trying to build a more reconciled and peaceful society, and working for reconciliation. I'm not sure how much you all know about Cyprus, and there definitely isn't time to tell you a lot about the problem. But at this point in time, which you probably know, the island is divided. with Turkish Cypriots living in the northern part of the island, Greek Cypriots living in the south, and there's a no man's land and a buffer zone with UN patrol in the middle. How we got to this point, depends on who's telling the story. Not that each person's view is not valid, it is, but it's all partial truths. And one of the problems we face is the fact that we only know our own truth and we don't know the experiences and the truth of the other side. I think the Cyprus problem at its core is really about two communities that can't agree how to administer the island together. And the reason I say this is because Cyprus at one point in time was part of the Ottoman Empire. It became a British colony. But the struggle against colonialism in Cyprus, which was started by the Greek Cypriots, was not started as a freedom struggle for independence. It was a struggle for union with Greece. So I'm talking about the 1950s. So obviously, and this is because Greek Cypriots take the view that Cyprus is a Greek island, the majority of the population is Greek, and therefore they feel that the Turkish Cypriot community should be treated fairly, but as a minority. Obviously, the Turkish Cypriot side has a different conception. They also feel they have equal claims on the island. It was part of the Ottoman Empire before it became a British colony. It's only 40 miles off the coast of Turkey. And when the Greek Cypriot side started the struggle for union with Greece, the Turkish response was for Taksim, which is division of the island. So essentially what we got in 1960 when we got independence was an independence that no one wanted. And unfortunately, the political leaderships on both sides were heirs to the nationalistic discourse of the period prior to the independence. And essentially, they were not able to make the constitution work. And we had a breakdown in 1963. Lots of different violent events took place. And finally, where we are now, with the division of the island. And we're still actually not able to agree about the issue of power sharing. Of course, there is also an impact from the outside interests in the island, the motherlands, Greece and Turkey, Britain as a guarantor power. We still have bases on the island, as I think you know and you mentioned. So, this is the complex situation in which peace builders and women's rights activists who wanted to work across the green line, the dividing line in Cyprus is called the Green Line, found themselves in. So in long-standing conflicts like the Cyprus conflict, one of the problems you have is that you have different narratives depending on who is telling the story, as I said. And the narrative always puts the narrator in the position of a victim and the other side in the position of the perpetrator. Whereas in fact, both sides are victims and perpetrators, if you like. And then you have the official discourse. You have a group of people who are trying to bridge this divide, try and understand each other, but unfortunately getting very little support from the leadership because in a sense the leadership is invested in perpetuating the conflict so that even when they say that they want a solution, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're prepared to make the sacrifices or the compromises that need to be made in order to find a solution. So, and then there are also feelings of humiliation on both sides because both sides feel that they have lost out in a way, they feel humiliated. These things are never discussed. For instance, we have missing people on both sides. There's a team which is trying to find the remains and return them to to their families. Actually, they're bicommunal teams, but each side presents the events when someone is found as this person is a hero or a martyr for their side. They don't look at it in the context of, we all have, you know, these terrible losses and we need to try and move forward. So that then also in Cyprus, we have the fact that it's been such a long-standing conflict, depending on when you decide when it started. But even if you put it in the 50s, you know, after all these years, it's basically a frozen conflict. So the weight of inertia of doing nothing and just sort of muddling along with this political situation as it is quite hard to overcome, I think. And unfortunately, the statistics show, the Civicus, for instance, statistics show that only 10% of Greek Cypriots and 15% of Turkish Cypriots have been involved in bicommunal activities, which is what we call the reconciliation activities in Cyprus. So you can see that it's a very small percentage, and it's not really possible for that small number of people to impact on the wider society, given the stance of the media, the political leadership, etc., etc. So, plus the other fact is that the other factors are that we are also seen as an elite group because we tend to speak English. We have to use English as a means of communication. And we generally come from the capital, and we're considered a sort of elite group that is not really representative of the general population. And of course, as women, we are doubly marginalized because we're women and we're part of a minority group in the sense that we're the minority group wanting reconciliation. So these are basically the difficulties we're facing. The pandemic, of course, has made things worse in a way because everybody is so concentrated on the pandemic that there isn't much energy or scope for anything else. But you know, this is my somewhat jaded take on the situation. I think the other speakers are going to be more upbeat, perhaps because I've been involved for a long time and never managed to see the outcomes that I had hoped for. But just as a closing, and perhaps to be more positive, I just wanted to suggest that what we can do to move forward perhaps is to have an exchange of best practices. We need to build alliances, I think, with those who might be able to help us and support us, particularly men, and particularly people who have influence and appreciate what we're doing. And I think we need to also, as a women's group, make it clear that this is not a women's issue, it's a societal issue. Both the issue of women's rights is a societal issue, and the issue of reconciliation is a societal issue if we want to get to a solution. So I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer questions later.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Thank you very much for explaining the situation of Cyprus. For many of us, I think why this conflict took place is not something which we are familiar with, but you really explained clearly the complexity of the history and also external involvement, and how, because it's been long term, so how this like frozen conflicts has been still affecting a different group of people. And obviously we also need to think about the social difference, not just Greek and Turkish communities, but also we need to consider the social division within the community. Okay, so next, I would like to invite Sophia for her presentation.
Great, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm always quite emotional and very touched when I see so many women from Cyprus on the call that have really dedicated their lives to this cause. And so I think this is for really and truly for you. And we've seen, I'll start by saying that over the last 20 plus years, women's groups from both sides of the divide have created very specific types of interventions to address sustainable peace. So we've seen the Hands Across the Divide, one of the first Greek and Turkish Cypriot women mobilizing what we call a vision of peaceful, non-divided, non-militarized, non-patriarchal Cyprus at its core, and very specifically on the Women, Peace and Security agenda. This group of civil society as women's activists have lobbied and continue to lobby for Cypriot women at the negotiating table. This is not my words, this is their words, and they have been pushing for this for quite some time. We also have the Gender Advisory Team, which was part of the UNDP Act 2 project and has played an instrumental role in really raising that public awareness with regards to UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and really putting into context, taking that resolution as a whole, as this abstract concept coming out of the UN Security Council and contextualizing it as part of that Women, Peace, Security agenda. And they've done so in a way that is truly for the Cypriot context. So they tackled property, citizenship, governance, power sharing, and the economy. And this has been to ensure that women island-wide are represented at the negotiating table and ultimately the peace talks result in reunification. And that's really been at its core. And I have to say, instrumental, that piece of work has truly been an added value in the conversation around women, peace, and security on the island. So in 2015, I'm going to fast forward, we had part of the confidence building measures, we had the coming together of the Gender Technical Committee for the first time in Cypriot peacebuilding history. And that was formed by the Turkish Cypriot and Greek Cypriot leadership to address the gaps of a gendered aspect of the Cyprus issue. So we had this particular committee was assigned to address women's rights, on all issues under the negotiations, as well as in what a future federal constitution would look like. And so they tried to address that women, of course, are and should be active participants, not only at the negotiating table, but also, of course, in post-conflict peace-building processes. So now, despite this initiative, the talks have remained male-centered, leader-led processes. And using my sort of gender technical lens, I would say a gender transformative approach to peace building at that track 1 level has yet to emerge. So I have to say the work done by the Gender Advisory Team and HAD, as well as other women's organizations, have really laid the foundation and the climate for the coordination of what really we see in the environment here today. So, and that coordination couldn't have happened in 2017, which ended up being what we would call the White Book of Best Practice on 1325. So this work came out of women island-wide putting together a white book through a workshop/conference that was called the Pathway to Sustainable Peace. And it resulted in addressing very specifically the 4 pillars of 1325 in the Cyprus context. Of course, participation, prevention, protection, relief, and recovery. And it was very specific and intentional to build that groundwork, all that work that GAC did, all the work and activism, grassroots activism of HAD on the front lines of activism for Cyprus, that lay claim for women, actually 40 women that participated from all sectors, backgrounds, to actually come together. That would have been impossible without the work of those previous organizations to happen. And what ended up happening was ideally what a United Cyprus National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security would look like. So the guidelines of the best practice was a means of contributing to that gender awareness piece that I mentioned earlier, gender equality and equity, as well as positive social change, and the different levels at which women mobilize for the participation and inclusion of women's perspectives at the peace negotiating table, and the difference between building and official negotiation. So that moving between that track 1, 2, and 3 levels and moving beyond that to serve as a solution-driven approach to gender mainstreaming in Cyprus. So this year, the Republic of Cyprus has released the first National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security through the Office of the Commissioner for Gender Equality, and it was in cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and, of course, coordination with other relevant ministries and services out of the Republic of Cyprus.
They make no sense to me. They come to our con,
which creates
they'll do what they please. Like red disease. They talk so many goddamn ways. It's all Greek to me.
yeah, great.
I do apologize. I have removed this person.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. So look, I just got sidetracked, but anyway, so the framing of the National Action Plan has been identified as a coherent horizontal policy, and it's supposed to create appropriate synergies between stakeholders and, of course, including the broader civil society, which is great. The NAP wrestles, however, with the issue of recognition, and that recognition of North Cyprus created as what they call a result of illegal use of force is incompatible, with the principles of international law. So what I and others which have commented of the NAP have suggested that really and truly it's a missed opportunity to develop a national action plan based on reunification. So to include both founding members of the Republic of Cyprus amongst religious groups, communities, the founding members, both of them are reflected in the log frame, but not within the overall LAP, which becomes sort of that clouded judgment. So essentially what I suggest is that you cannot have a women, peace and security agenda, or when you do not address the issue that within the NAP that is developed by all founding members of the Republic. So if indeed political leadership is committed on reunification of through the National Action Plan, this is an opportunity here to be implemented independently. But at the end of the day, it has to have at the core of it, both communities and, as I mentioned, religious communities stated. And along with, of course, those gender responsive indicators going beyond organizing and information, going beyond awareness and seminars. And ideally, what I would have liked to have seen is more support in the same way the Jordanian NAP was developed, and that was with the assistance of various other actors like Women in Peacebuilding, so that the support of UN Women had been there. And I think it was clouded by the simple fact of recognition. And so I'm going to close with the fact that the COVID pandemic has really amplified the multiple threats to the issue of, within the context, of women, peace and security, so that peace should not only signify peace in the context of this conflict and frozen conflict, but also the idea of whose peace, whose livelihoods are at stake. And so I leave you with a core question with everything that I brought up here today is whose peace? Who speaks for whom and under what conditions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia. And thank you very much for explaining how women, peace and security agenda and the development of national action plans being sort of used as a sort of tool to move forward. But at the same time, obviously with a COVID pandemic, there's been a lot of questions raised in terms of whose peace we are talking about. Okay, thank you. And then next, I would like to pass on to MB.
Thank you, Maki. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Cecilia, Maki, for inviting us. First of all, I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone in Hands Across the Divide, all our members, for this honor. Thank you for inviting us to this event. It's lovely to be here. It's an honor to be here with all of you and to share our experiences in Cyprus and to also form some foundations of solidarity between all of us, because I think as women, we're all experiencing the pandemic and it's impacting us in so many ways. I actually have a presentation, but I just want to check in first. Is everyone okay? Just give me a wave to say that you're okay. Everyone's good. Great. Okay. Just want to get the energy levels up. So it's been a long day for all of us. And I'm sure it's a huge week for everyone too, because it's International Women's Day. And it seems like we have events going on all the time. So thank you for your patience and for being with us. So I'm going to share my presentation. It's 16 slides, but I'm going to zoom through them because and I've got a lot of pictures to keep you all entertained. So just bear with me while I put it into slideshow. Okay, can everybody see that? Just give me a thumbs up. Yeah, okay, great. So I wanted to talk about Hands Across the Divide and the narratives of women peace builders, who we are as a group and what we're trying to do. And I think Katie and we touched on a lot of the work that we've done, both in our capacity as members of Hands Across the Divide, but also in our individual personal capacities in our different fields of experience. My experience comes mainly from a communications background with a focus on youth and gender and Indigenous work as well in Australia. I've worked with Aboriginal communities as well. So I was born in Australia. My parents migrated to Australia from Cyprus because of the conflict, and they never moved back. So that's why I've got this accent. So for those of you who, I'm sure many of you have been to Cyprus, you know about Cyprus. It's such a tiny and cute little island. And I managed to find a politically neutral map with no flags and no blood coming out of it and all of that kind of stuff, because we have these, you know, the dominant narrative on each side is different, as Katie mentioned. And, you know, sometimes during like national days of each side, you find these really horrible maps with like, so if you're in the north, you'll have a map that will have like the south part completely blacked out. And then if you're in the south, you'll have the north part all red with blood coming down. It's really horrible images. But here is a neutral map of Cyprus, everyone. As you can see, and as Katie mentioned earlier, after the 1974 conflict, we were divided into two. And the little light blue line going across is our UN buffer zone. So within that blue space is a ceasefire. So you won't, no killings or shootings going on there. And as Katie and Sophie have mentioned as well, we are a frozen conflict. So there we don't have an active war going on. And in fact, in the general communities, we actually get along. I mean, Cypriots have Cypriots on all sides of the island. We share the same culture and same food, and we just don't speak each other's languages, which is a shame. And then you can see that the grid, they belong to you. They belong to the UK. These are the UK sovereign bases areas in Akrotiri and Dikelia. Okay, so these belong to the UK. So this piece, so we've had this decades-long, you know, conflict, and we've had peace negotiations since the beginning. And these actually began even before the 1974 conflict, as Katie mentioned, that that the troubles started as early as the 50s and maybe before. So, you know, this has been going on a process of effort and energy and resources into this process, and we have an official website, where Cyprus Peace Talks.org, which you can have a look at. And I'm happy to share this presentation with all of you. I can pass it on to Maki and Cecilia, because I do have some resources at the end that you can look into if you're interested to find out more. So where are the women? Well, women are here, but women's participation in the Cyprus peace process remains one of the most unfulfilled aspects of the women, peace and security agenda. There is a gender blindness in the peace process, and this is prevalent due to the lack of responsibility to address the women, peace and security agenda. And as Sophia mentioned, there was the formation of the gender advisory team by UNDP, and then following that, the leaders finally got their act together and joined and formed the gender equality technical committee. So under the peace process, under the official peace process, we have various technical committees. There's one on education, gender equality. There's one on cultural heritage. So these technical committees provide advice to the peace process and ideas for confidence building measures in order to promote reconciliation, to build trust between the two sides. Now, I must say, and this is an important thing to remember, and that I have to say, following the election of our new Turkish Cypriot leader a few months ago, all 4 members of the Turkish Cypriot side of the Gender Technical Committee resigned. So this is a huge blow. This is a huge blow to the gender equality and WPS agenda for the Turkish Cypriots to leave. However, as women, many of us support them in their decision because they don't see how there can ever be any kind of gender equality in this peace process, or even a fruitful peace process with our current leadership in the north. And I can say that as a Turkish Cypriot because I feel the same way. There are probably a lot of people who will disagree with me because they supported this new leader and they voted for him, but some of us, most of us, the majority of us don't feel that way. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that Cyprus is a member of the EU. So whilst the acquis communautaire is suspended in the north, the EU officially is a member of the EU. And until very recently, they were ignoring the EU Gender Action Plan of 2016-2022, which insists on the mandatory and systematic reporting of all EU member states in order to implement gender equality. Having said that, in more recent years, and very, very recent years, maybe in the last 1 or 2 years, they have started to take gender a lot more seriously. And as Sophia mentioned, they have actually finally put together a national action plan on women, peace and security. As members have had, and we have provided feedback on this, and so have the members of GAT, where we've all expressed our disappointment and the gaps that we see in the national action plan. I hate to say this, but at least we have a national action plan, I suppose. But as Sophia said, that there is an issue of recognition and Turkish Cypriot being referred to basically as minorities. Back to the dominant rhetoric that Katie mentioned earlier, and the same problems still exist in terms of our language and how we look at each other. So those negotiating at the peace table, they do have responsibility to address the absence of incentives and accountability mechanisms that would facilitate the identification and appointment of qualified women candidates as mediators. So when they say, where are the women? We keep saying, as Hands Across the Divide, well, we're here, why are the women not being invited? Well, it's because, I mean, look at it. I just want to show these pictures because these are, so every time there's a leadership change, we have new leaders taking on the peace process. Then you have these UN and EU officials coming as negotiators. So where you can see one woman here, and that's basically the UNSG, Elizabeth Speher in the top right-hand photo, with our new TC leader on the left looking very awkward and not wanting to be there, and the Greek Cypriot leader to her right, to her left. Apart from that, as you can see, it's all men in suits. So what does that cause? Okay, and what do we see here? It's patriarchy. We're just reinforcing the patriarchy here by allowing the men to always take the lead. And and this has absolutely got nothing to do with the lack of qualified women that could be involved in the process. So I want to start talking a little bit about Hands Across the Divide and how we've come to be where we are. Hands Across the Divide was established in 2001, and this was at a time when the checkpoints were still closed. So the members first met in the UK actually, and then they had started having meetings in a village called Pila, where Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots were able to access. It's the only registered bi-communal women's organisation where members share the values of democracy, equality, inclusion, and non-violence, and we're disregarding differences of ethnic or national identity. Addressing gender inequalities in each community and in the peace process. And we were also lobbying for gender equality in the lead up to the Annan Plan and the Cyprus EU accession in 2004. We recently, as a group, have revisited our vision and our mission statements. I won't read them out because they're there, you can have a look. We reevaluated where we are now and what is it that we want to achieve? What do we stand for? And this has been an important step in our evolution, because I think as Hands Across the Divide, and maybe Katie will talk about this, we were at the verge of a collapse, and because we're all tired, we're all burnt out, we've been waiting for a solution for years. We've been screaming in the streets and demonstrating and sending letters and doing all sorts of things. And as Katie said, nothing has changed. You know, we're still divided and we still are in the same situation. Are things better? Of course they are. Now the checkpoints are open, people can cross, people can go back to their if they're IDPs, they can go back and visit their family homes. They can visit their friends on the other side. We can start, you know, I've seen a huge influx of young people learning the language of the other side. A lot of Turkish Cypriots learning Greek and Greek Cypriots learning Turkish. In fact, our member Selma, who's going to speak later, is at B1 level of Greek now. I mean, you know, and I'm jealous because I wish I could speak Greek as well. So just some of our actions from the past and even now. We, you know, as women, you know, women have always got a lot to talk about, and we've done a lot of workshops in the past as Hands Across the Divide, on women and peace, on gender training, on women's experience of the conflict. At the beginning, when the checkpoints were first opened, there was a curfew, so you had to be back by midnight. So the members of HAD did a Cinderella protest where they all dressed up as Cinderella and held hands and said, you know, no, we're not going to go back at midnight. And I think some of the founding members, I wasn't here for that, and I'm sad that I wasn't, I was still in Australia, but some of the founding members and more older members will, who've been around from the beginning of HAD will remember those protests. So a lot of lobbying and advocacy work, a lot of trust building. We had a project called the Peace Bus, which we're still planning to do once the COVID measures are over, where we get together on a bus as members, and it's other women are and men and boys are welcome to join us. And we just organize to go and visit different villages. As Katie mentioned, we are very we are conceived as or, you know, perceived, sorry, as elitist or Nicosia centric, but we do want to get out there and visit the rural areas, and we've got a lot of ideas and projects on how to reach women in those areas as well. We also do a lot of letter writing and articles, policy work around UN Security Council Resolution 1325, which Sophia has already talked about. We also collaborate with other NGOs and peace platforms who are pro-peace and pro-solution. We also have been representing the voice of women at UN level. One of our members spoke at an event last year in October with the Secretary General, and she brought to the agenda and the attention of the UN the difficult situation that we're having here as women in Cyprus. And more recently, I wanted to mention this because I think it's important for any women's group. We've started doing some healing and connection workshops amongst ourselves because, as I mentioned earlier, we're really feeling so, yeah, I've got someone trying to come in. I'll see if I can let them in. Woo, I just let someone in. Okay. The healing and connection workshops are mainly for us to just talk about our feelings and how to overcome the anxiety that's being caused by the ongoing, non-resolution of the Cyprus problem, the impact of the pandemic, the fact that we can't get together to see each other and hug and hold hands and cry together. We can't do any of that, and everything's online. So we're doing very special and centered, real proper healing workshops to kind of help ourselves with that. So this is a picture of me and one of the members, Rita, who's with us now. I was pregnant in this photo to my son. Where this is when we first started doing the Peace Bus, and the reason I'm going to talk about my son later on, I'll explain why it's important, but not right now. So the white book, I'm not going to talk about too much because Sophia already talked about this, and I'm going to have a link for it at the end. But it was the first time that the women of Cyprus got together and said, and literally like really worked on the 4 pillars of 1325 with full-on recommendations, lots of recommendations, which, you know, and this was in November 2016, and we're 5 years later, we've only just now got a national action plan, which is quite atrocious when you think about it. But like I said, it's better than not having one. It is a first step. It's not the best national action plan. It could be a lot better. And I'm sure the next one's going to be better. We'll make sure of it. So what's next? The peace process is dead again. We're really distraught with the change of leadership in the north. We kind of feel like there's no hope. We have a completely right wing and, I was about to say a really bad word. We have a very right-wing leader who's already talking about a 2-state solution. And when we hear that, that just that is not what we want to hear. You know, having a two-state solution for such a tiny island is not only a waste of resources, it really just goes against the values of the Cypriot people. I mean, we are Cypriot people. We're not, you know, we're not here to separate, you know, we're here to come together. So regardless of what happens to the current peace process, we urgently need to raise women leaders. We need women's representation improved in the parliaments, in the media, and in society, and in the society at large. And what we're aiming to do next is to send some advocacy work. The UN convened 5+1 meeting, which is being planned to be held in Geneva in April. So this 5+1 meeting is basically the two sides of Cyprus, so the two leaders, plus the three guarantor countries, which is Turkey, UK, and the +1 is the UN. So here I think there could be room for a discussion around how, if the UK is going to be at this event, perhaps UK could help. Sorry, did I lose everyone? Cecilia, did you lose me for a minute?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Did everybody hear that? I'm almost at the end, so please bear with me. Did you hear my last part about the 5+1 meeting? Should I repeat that?
Just a bit of it. So yeah, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to say here is that the UN is going to be convening a 5+1 meeting in Geneva in April, and as Hands Across the Divide, we'll be lobbying and sending letters and urging our leaders, you know, to come up with some sort of framework for the negotiations to continue. And here, I think would be an opportunity to have some solidarity with UK will, because the UK will be represented at this 5+1 meeting as one of the guarantor powers. So it will be UK, Greece, Turkey, the two Cypriot sides, and the +1 is the UN. So where am I? Okay. So we've talked about it. We've been talking recently about a new approach. Hands Across the Divide is coming up with different project ideas, applying for funding from the UN, and perhaps later on from the EU. We recognise that we need to assess our current approach and stop doing things that don't work. We need to urgently come up with radical interventions, perhaps using new media and new technologies as a form of protest, since we literally cannot go out and protest on the street, which we'd love to do. We need a new movement with new women, more women, feminist boys and men, and younger women, of course, as well, because we need to pass the baton on to the next generation. So I'm not going to say that we have to misbehave, but I like this quote because it says, well-behaved women rarely make history. So some useful links, including the link to the white book at the bottom, which Sophia mentioned. I've also, the second link is Sophia's thesis on Cyprus women's movement, the the Mediterranean Institute for Gender Studies as well. Here, the fourth point here you can see is the She Expert. So this is an initiative that the Mediterranean Institute of Gender Studies has come up with. When I talked earlier about, you know, the excuse that men have about not involving women is that there's not enough qualified women. Well, here's a solution. The She Experts database, she/experts.com, is a database of Cypriot women who are experts in their field. So if you need someone from, any woman from Cyprus that could talk on geology, everything from geology to science to communications to education, you'll find an expert there. And the rest are different, like Prio and Fez Cyprus, who do various kinds of reports on Cyprus that you may want to look at. And finally here, this is my son. He's turning 30 this year. And the reason I share this photo, and this is right near the checkpoint at Leidra Street, and there's a community centre with a mosaic with this outside. And the reason I share this photo is because when I had my son, when I gave birth to my son, the new round of peace negotiations had started between the two new leaders from Cyprus, and they were both left-wing leaders, and we were so hopeful that because they were left-wing and pro-peace, that we would have a solution. And I thought that my son would grow up in a unified Cyprus. And as I said, he's turning 13 this year, and we still don't have a solution. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for listening. And we are hoping to do bigger and better things, and we look forward to hopefully doing work with UK Look as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Pembe. I'm not very sure. And did everyone manage to see the last few slides? Or yes, okay. But there were a few questions in the chat box. But Pembe is happy to share the slides. So in addition to the recording, that slide will be shared. So unfortunately, that we couldn't see your son's photo, but we will have opportunity later. Thank you very much, Pembe, for illuminating the lack of women's representation at decision-making, the peace negotiation, and sharing this inspiring and rich activities or hands across the divide, and your plan for the future, how to incorporate the innovative approach to peace building. Okay, now I would like to move on to our last speaker, Katie. Can I pass to you?
Yeah, thanks, Maggie, and good evening, everyone. I tried to speak in the beginning just to say that I was going to share the floor with Selma Bolayer, a Turkish Cypriot member of the board, but so we can have a more balanced, let's say, representation today in terms of community. But she just called me up and said the connection is not so good, so she cannot even listen to us continuously. So I hope that she can reconnect at some point and tell us her precious information. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'd like to say a couple of remarks. I've listened very carefully to the speakers before me, and I do share what Katie Claridis was saying, that the years have passed and we haven't seen the change or the solution, the result we were hoping for. All of us who have been involved in the peace process for so long, for so many years. Actually, Katie was even before me. Then I was very encouraged by Sophia's presentation, in a sense that the young, and Pembe's, that the younger generation is getting involved. So there is a continuation and a continuity and a coherence, perhaps, that can make a difference in the society. Since it's been now 20 years that this group was founded, this organization, I remember sitting with Sevgiul Uludağ in Rhodes, on the island of Rhodes, somehow 21 years ago, saying, when we go, we were at a conference and we said, when we go back, we need a structure to sustain us, to keep ideas alive, and to create mechanisms and structures to apply them, to implement them. And so we came up with this idea of Hands Across the Divide. It did, as a group, as an organization, it went through a lot of phases. But today, I'm happy, I'm pleased to see us all getting together and making a new structure again, trying to I couldn't say make a difference, but at least, because it's maybe far-fetched, but at least to make our voices heard. And one thing that is very important for me is that in this group, we are sharing resources. If there are, we have launched a series of talks, of meetings with political leaders on both sides, even with the presidents of the two communities, also with political party leaders, together with ambassadors and foreign representatives, who all show a respect for the group and its work and its prospect. For us, it's a chance, it's an opportunity to say things, to make our voices heard. And maybe, for these people who are in the decision-making centers, to take such decisions that will touch more and more people's lives, and hopefully, of course, for the better. For example, we had our member Magda Zinon, who participated in October at a panel with Secretary General of the UN. Then we got from Magda all the outcome of the conclusions and from the conference, which it has been disseminated to all of us and to other parties and sectors of the society to be developed. Some of us have connections with some ambassadors, with some political leaders, with figures. So we all put them on one plate. It's not a struggle for showing off, and because again, as Sophia said, we are working for peace. Whose peace and who is working for this peace? It's our lives. It's our everyday lives, and we don't make careers. We don't make like political leaders do, to show off and to serve our ego. When we started this group, my hair was brown. Now it's white. You can see it. I feel I'm getting old. There is a stalemate of the Cyprus problem, but the generations are changing. But still, we need to never lose hope. There was a very high hope on this island when Katie Claridis' father, the late Glafkos Claridis, was in power. Things moved to the better. We needed a few more weeks or months, to finish, to sign, etc. The elections came, the overthrow, and then back to square one. Sometimes even luck didn't help these people, didn't help us. But still, we never lose hope. And I'm very much concerned, and we are concerned as a group about all women. Although a kind of elite has been created participating in the peace process in Nicosia, because it's easier, it's more accessible to meet with Turkish Cypriots in the north. Also, there are other groups nowadays functioning, like in Pila, where it is a bicommunal village. Also, the women of Famagusta in the eastern coast of Cyprus, and the women of Lefka are also meeting with neighboring associations of women. So more initiatives are taking place. And you see, COVID, instead of bringing us together, has separated us physically. We have a border now. It's not just a checkpoint. But still we are functioning because we have technology to use. And let me tell you also that a group like yours, WILP, is very important to create alliance with us, because it empowers us. I participated in 1995 at the train from Warsaw to Beijing on WILP. With Mrs. Miller. It was an incredible trip. And I still have very good memories and slides from the train. And there I remember women from different parts of the world also working for peace. Whose peace is a very good question, very legitimate question, because there was so much hope and so much empowerment. And again, last year, we've seen Armenia and Azerbaijan going into bloodshed. We see things happening in other conflict areas in the world, but still we have seen areas like Northern Ireland having a more stable situation. So we are hoping we can make it. The last thing I want to talk about is our two projects that we are working on now. One is Meet the Women, where we are interviewing with a small funding from the UN. We are going to interview women who have made a difference in the society, but on both societies, but they haven't been visible. They haven't been high profile. And we would like to bring their example on the surface to give courage to the women of Cyprus, whoever these are, to move on, never give up, never lose hope, even if they suffer at home, even if they come out from broken relationships, broken marriages, failed careers, to be able to move on and have the strength to move on. And the second one is a project that we are seeking for funding, some funding. And this is a project that covers all the areas of Cyprus and all the women of Cyprus, those who are making things at home, either jewelry or embroidery, or they are baking things. And they try to create a side economy for their households, for themselves, for their families, for their sustenance and sustainability. So it is important to find these women and put all their work on a website. I have done, we have done a big research all over Cyprus, and managed to spot out these women and also associations of women. It's incredible to meet these women. It's fantastic, the wealth and the richness they carry within. And they are not the women who've inherited money and glory from their fathers or their husbands or their, or they found things ready-made from their families. These are women who are struggling every day, and they are greatly appreciated. So stay tuned, and you will hear shortly about the launching of this project. And we hope to bring women together, women from the west coast of Paphos or Pyrgos to Karpas, the eastern coast. Women who may communicate in Greek, who may communicate in Turkish, but also translation will be provided to them. Last and only last touch, I want to introduce to the group my adopted granddaughter. She is here with me today. She wanted to play with me, but I kept her in the other room so I could be in silence and be able to talk to you. But this is Olivia. This is Olivia. Where are you, Olivia? Mo? You can see her. You can see them. You can see my friends. No. Say hello.
Hi, Olivia.
But we met when she was 8 weeks old. She was transferred to the Children's Hospital on the Greek side because of a problem she had, a health problem. And I met her at the hospital. And since then, we became so close. So she's my adopted granddaughter. It's a lovely communication. So I'm very optimistic. When I look into Olivia's eyes, I see the world. So thank you so much for today, and we'll continue our discussion along with the questions and answers. Thanks again.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Katie, for introducing your granddaughter, Olivia, and also sharing your experience of transnational and bi-communal networking, and illustrating how different group of women trying to use their own resources and network to create for peace building without losing hope. So okay, and I think we have got just under 30 minutes left, and I know that I can ask the first question, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of people who want to ask questions to the speakers. So I would like to open the floor to questions, and then if you need some time to gather your thought, I will ask my first question. So can you raise hand and use your microphone, or maybe you can ask question in the chat box. Anyone raising hand? Cecilia, can you see anyone raising hand?
Yeah, no, there aren't any raised hands. I can't see if you can raise hands because I'm hosting, but if anyone wants to try that. Oh, we have someone. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I said, and Nandria, yes, do you want to ask question? Oh, you are muted. You're muted again. Yes.
Hi, I'm Andrea. It's
sorry.
Nicolau.
Yes.
No, don't worry. It's Nicolau. It's the first number. I'm Andrea Nicolau. I'm actually working at the University of Cyprus. First of all, I would like to thank all the ladies here. I'd like to thank Aisha who invited me here. I work at the University of Cyprus and I'm a PhD student working currently on Cyprus issue and gender. And the more I get to read and the more I get to hear what these lovely ladies have been doing so far, it's not a question, it's more like an eye-opening, you know, of all that has been happening. And it's unfortunate that our voices are not heard yet. But thanks God that all these women are out there fighting, putting their efforts and their ideas there. And I think that maybe COVID, somebody said that COVID created crisis, but it created opportunities as well. And you see that movements, either protecting the environment, either protecting women or human rights or anything to do with the deprived ones, their voices are getting louder. And this is again an opportunity for us. Again, thank you for the lovely presentations, and it was lovely to see some of the people that I know already.
Okay, Andrea, thank you very much for your comment. Okay, I think Sophia is raising her hand.
Hi, thanks so much for the presentations. And it's been a very long time since I've been to Cyprus, where I once got to volunteer with UNDP working with Pembe, which is a very long time ago. So lovely to see your face. I'm really interested in a question that was in the chat, but I'll add it as well. I'm really interested in how we can pressure from the UK side because of UK playing that really particular role in the talks. But I'm also interested in the work that you're doing at the grassroots, and I'd love to hear a little bit from what happened when Magda was able to speak at the UN at with the Secretary General, and if there was anything in particular about connecting all these grassroots work that you're doing to some of those sort of track 1 and track 1.5 negotiations that are coming in terms of getting women on the table, in terms of co-mediation, all the stuff that we know that the UN says it will do, but has not been doing. So maybe 2 questions with the UK side and the UN.
Could I reply, because it's Magda? The meeting, I was in the room with 3 other exceptional women from Africa that have real conflict in the sense of it's now and people are dying. And the frozen conflict took over the conversation because it was the day one of the UN resolutions had been violated. One of the closed areas in the north was opened. So the whole conversation was focused on, most of the conversation was focused on Cyprus. Mostly Guterres expressed despair, male egos on the table, absolute despair. He made a point at the end and then realized what he had said. He said, you know, I almost feel as if I have to push the negotiators to put women at the table. But they can't. The mandate in Cyprus is very limited. But we did come up with a really great communique with specific points that the gender advisory team that Sophia had spoken about, a real tangible asks. We communicated everything to the leaders, and that's exactly why we, as a group, are going to be going to the diplomats and to the heads of the political parties to actually push the fact that women are available. And I don't like to use the word a competent woman, because with the competent never goes in terms of men. I really object to that. And we also want to show the people that actually can put pressure on the negotiators that we as an island-wide group have coexisted and have coexisted for 20 years and we're doing quite well. So we want to help and try, want to try and the picture that people are seeing. This happens. We have had our ups and downs, but whatever. But we can operate bicamerally and we operate horizontally. Though we have a board, because a board is necessary in terms of legislation, this is a very horizontal operating group and it operates particularly well. So I think that's the one way we will be trying to lobby and push. But it is a really hard discourse or public narrative to break because it's been going on for 50 years. And we've been physically separated, despite the fact that they're checkpoints. We've been physically separated. We have very bad education systems in the north and the south. It touches on what Kate was saying, you know what, in the south, we are the victims of the north, and in the north, they are the victims of the south. And because of the passage of time, it's becoming entrenched. So it's quite a hard battle, but we never give up. And the fact that we went through we were almost ready to close our doors about 2 years ago because we were tired and spread too thin, and something jump-started us. And one of the things that jump-started us was Katie's persistence. And suddenly we found another way of operating. And maybe this time I will disagree with Katie. We will make an impact, even if it's changing one person's mind. But maybe this is approaching things a different way is the way to go. Our press releases have changed. So we're trying to change the way words are used. Doing heart meditations in the middle of an informative seminar is another way. So I think we're approaching it in a different way. So I think maybe this might be more effective now. But the mere fact that we're out there, that this is 20 years later, that when the UN was going to have this roundtable on 1325, the 20th anniversary, and Cyprus was one of the 4 countries chosen, and from Cyprus, Hands Across the Divide was recognized as a name brand, to me, is change enough. Not it's change enough, it means there has been a certain amount of change. We have taken the first step. And I'm blowing our own trumpet because I think it deserves to be blown, to be honest. We've done this, and I have to say this, we've actually done work in 20 years on less than 15,000 euros because all of us put our passion and our time to this because we really believe it. These women from HAD are my family. Proud to have them as family.
Thank you, Magda, for sharing that. Yes, and Katie, do you want to also make a comment?
Yes, concerning the question on the role of the UK, of course, at the high political level, there is involvement. And of course, it touches us, whatever the outcome is. And there was also a discussion, I remember years ago, with Sir David Honey, who was coming to Cyprus to discuss, the issue of the British bases concerning the oil and gas that was found in the seas in the south, and how we find a way of exploit, but also, the politics of the settlement. Nowadays, what I know from our work and our group is that we've been given attention by the British High Commission here in Cyprus, and we are discussing with them possibilities for projects, and we hope, and it's a horizontal process, as Magda says. We've sent messages to all our board meetings are open to all our members and to friends. There are no closed meetings. There are no elites, and there are no introvert processes. And so we've asked our members to come up with ideas on what possible projects could be in cooperation with the British High Commission in Cyprus. And the next week, they're going to take decisions on or make decisions on. So we still have time to submit ideas. And this is important because you see, I mean, the role of Britain throughout the years has been discussed in various ways, and yes, having Britain and having the British people as allies is very important. It's very precious, and the fact that we choose until now, for the moment, to work silently and peacefully. Promoting peace peacefully until we are ready. We have come up with our vision, mission, and goals we could send to the WILP, and you can disseminate to your members. And we are planning, as soon as the green line opens, we are planning for an open press conference to tell people, to tell the wider society who we are, what we want, what our plans are, and how we are trying to achieve them. Typically, because of the constitution, we have to have a structure, a president and a co-president. The names are written down, but Pembe and I are working and are operating as co-presidents, and this has built trust over the years. And Pembe could send me a message, please take over on this. I'm on another urgent thing nowadays. I can do the same. I can do with all the members of the group. We rely on each other. So it's a different way of working, as well as women. It's not just an idea, being women. We have placed the foundations of how to work differently than men. So I think this will lead unavoidably to progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Yes. So obviously, UK has the, because of the UK's historical involvement, but also like future political commitments that, I think we can do a lot in the UK to support and work in solidarity with sisters in Cyprus. Okay, and I can see, is it Eloise? Yes. Do you want to ask questions?
Yeah, hi, sorry. I'm Eloise.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, sorry. I'm very new to WILP, and this is my first webinar, but it's very, very interesting. I was quite curious, and this is sort of addressed to anybody really, about the participation of men and boys in women's peace movements in Cyprus, and whether sort of over time you've seen a change in sort of male perception of women's peace movements and their participation in them.
Do you want me to try to answer that, Maki?
Yes, thank you, Pembe. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eloise, for the question. Unfortunately, we are living in a very patriarchal society, and and Sophia will be able to say more than me on this because she's done the research. But the gender norms in both sides are very patriarchal, and women, despite the fact that, I mean, in the north alone, we've had of women MPs because we introduced a gender quota in the latest elections that we had. Having said that, it doesn't mean that having more women in parliament makes us more pro-peace or pro-reconciliation, because many of these women are also from right-wing parties. Unfortunately, this hasn't raised the voice of women at the peace process level either. And as I said, the Gender Technical Committee has fallen apart through the resignation of the 4 TC, Turkish Cypriot members. You know, I think I could say that probably in the last 10 years, things are changing a little bit. Things are getting better. I mean, you know, we are, the textbooks have also started to change in terms of not always showing the women being the mom and cooking and cleaning and, you know, having more gender neutral roles. The LGBTI movement has also been huge in the, you know, has had a lot of progress in the last 5 to 10 years as well, which has also improved the way that gender norms are perceived and gender identity is perceived. So I think despite the fact that we look very modern on the outside, we're still very traditional, very, very traditional here. And women are able to go out and work and earn their own income. However, when they come home, they still do assume the role of mother and wife and whatever. And the majority of the domestic chores still does fall on women and a lot of the unpaid work, unfortunately. But we also have a huge, I don't want to even say, it's a massive childcare crisis here. We don't have government funded childcare. Everything's privatized. And this also is a debilitating factor in women's economic involvement. I also want to touch on what Sophia had asked as well, and I was racking my brain, Sophia, trying to remember where I remember your name from and the face. And now, so thanks for reminding me. I do remember you now, and it's great to see you. I think there is a UK parliamentary special group, special interest group on Cyprus, actually. Yeah. So I would, you could lobby, I think as UK Wilk, you could probably lobby them as well. They do come here from time to time and do gigs here with the British High Commission. But that would probably be a group that you could pressurize as well, especially in the lead up to the April event, the April meeting. So we could have a look into that. Perhaps I could try to find, I'm sure I've got the business card of one of the members and send you the proper name, sent to you via email to lobby them. So I hope that's helpful. And Eloise, I hope I answered your question. I don't know, Sophia, if you want to add to that, or if any of our other members wants to add to that.
Yeah, I don't mind just adding just a few insights if that might be helpful. So I think one of the things that the predominant sort of common denominator amongst women's activism has been the, you know, working around, within, living, breathing a highly militarized state. Those of us who are raising boys, for example, are raising boys that will inevitably end up in an obligatory military service. Okay, now the length of time has been shortened for the South. However, within that environment, you'll see, or we've noted, especially in some of our work with an organization called SEED, that within the relationships within our society and communities, we have higher levels of toxic masculinity, which has a negative indicator with regards to social tolerance and also misogyny. And this would explain, of course, the high levels of SGBV in both communities. So I think working around the issue of toxic masculinity and engaging men and boys that are outside of the peace building bubble, outside of peace building, is relevant and is an entry point. And I think I've been thinking about this a lot in some of the work I've been doing of how do we engage international organizations that are addressing family violence, external, you know, within the home, and Promundo, if some of you have heard about Promundo and their work on men care and their men care approach and engaging men and boys, I think that would add a different scope of work to some of the pieces and interventions that we've done already. But I think it is a slippery slope when it comes to the type of masculinity that's being played out here, when it comes to engaging men and boys, because they have to fit in a very specific, highly militarized environment, and this hyper masculinity that keeps coming out. Yeah, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Any more questions, or anyone wants to make further comment?
Could I just add something to what's been said? That there is one positive development recently, and that is that a number of women have come out and spoken about sexual harassment at work. And for the first time, I think the issue is being taken seriously, and the police are investigating these cases. So I think that is a positive development. I mean, it's something which has been happening more or less around the world, but it's good to see that the issue is finally being taken seriously in Cyprus as well, as an aside. And on the issue of young people and young men, maybe we also as a group need to reach out and try and find where these, because there obviously are more reconciliation oriented types of men. Maybe we need to reach out and try and work with them as well. And finally, and as to what you could do, I think the British branch could probably give us some tips on how you work, for instance, to try and lobby politicians and make your voices heard, and also try and get your point of view into the media. You could share your experiences and your greater sort of longer history perhaps with us. That would be very helpful.
Yes, Katie. Thank you, Katie. Yes, and obviously whether our voices are heard or not is one of the questions, but obviously we have got long history of lobbying the politicians, so we have got plenty of example how to lobby, which we are pretty sure that we are happy to share with you. Yes. And any further questions? So I'm conscious with the time, but I'm just, as I said, I had a question, and then it was actually linked to previous questions. So if you don't mind my asking this. So obviously, in your presentation that many of you mentioned about, the maybe some the peace. Yes, some people can. The movement can be sometimes be elitist, and the problem of, or like a challenge of reaching out different communities, and obviously that's also include men and boys. So and also it is about the generation difference. You might need to involve a younger generation in the peace movement. So what kind of the plans that you have to reach out and to make your movement further inclusive?
I can start. Maybe the other members can step in as well. As I mentioned, we have the Peace Bus, which we had started a few years ago. So the idea would be to reactivate the Peace Bus and start going to different areas. But I think also we're very interested in what women, as Katie mentioned earlier, what the women in the in the east, on the East Coast and the West Coast are doing as well. So there are active women in those areas that we know of, and maybe we need to get in touch with them. And in terms of getting younger women involved, I mean, we already have some here in the event that these are young women who are studying conflict resolution or peace building, and they are feminists and they want to become members. So I think it's more about us promoting ourselves a little bit better, and maybe coming up with some project ideas that would involve younger women. But right now we're very restricted physically as to what we can do. But our membership drive, thanks to Katie and all the other members, actually is going really well. We've got a lot of new members joining, and we're very open to having more members and new members. So they're just some of the strategies, like I said, but we're very open to ideas as well.
Can I step in and say that the one way we are encouraging or spreading out is by making our public presence on social media. So what I was saying about changing language, the way we express things, the press releases we're putting out or the New Year's messages that we're putting out are actually striking a chord with a lot of people. The fact that they can't keep on hearing this harsh ethnic male conversation. And we also, the fact that we're on social media and the fact that we in lockdown has actually helped us, because we have a lot of meetings on Zoom that you can then actually put online. So to actually, it's given us a way to become more visible in a very public way, a public soft way. I think that's played a big part, because you're not talking about a group that's just a name. It's actually got a face and a presence in social media that, especially for the younger woman, is the place they go to.
Yeah, thank you, Magda. Yes. Anyone from the members want to comment?
I think Rita's trying to say something. Rita, are you trying to unmute? Just press on. Go to your top right-hand corner of your photo and you can unmute there. Maybe I can unmute.
I think you can unmute it.
I can't, I tried. Cecilia, can you unmute Rita?
I'm trying to ask her, but she is not responding. Damn it. In the meantime, maybe we can hear from
Jenny. No, I think Rita is now unmuted. Yes.
I'm not trying to say something. I was just reading the chat. That's why you saw my hand go like this.
Wonderful. This is so wonderful. Thank you. Jenny, maybe.
I think, Jenny, yeah.
Hello, I just wanted to say, I haven't a question at the moment, but I just wanted to say thank you, because it's really good to hear about the hands across the divide and so on. It's very inspiring, actually. I've not been to Turkey. I've been to Greece and parts of Greece. I just think it's a tragedy. I just so hope that all the work you're putting in is successful, and that you can keep on, you have the strength to keep on doing it, because that's it. That's what you have to do. And I think maybe we can do something, whatever we can. So good luck to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Any more questions?
Thank you, Jenny. I had just a statement, if I may. So the expats, the Cypriot expats all over the world are such a big force, and it would have been wonderful to be able to engage some of them in the process along with us on board. We've tried at some point, but because of these years, the lobbying, at least from the Greek Cypriot side, was how the Greek Cypriot side saw the problem, which was so different than how the Turkish Cypriot side saw the problem. It was difficult. I mean, these expats were so distant between them, although probably some Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots could be living in the same neighborhoods in North London. I don't know how things are in Australia or New York, etc. But then the younger generation is a hope. The young generation, I mean, my generation, we haven't made it, but the young generation, I see some efforts in areas of art and in areas of science. I mean, prominent young Cypriots from both communities who are remarkable. And I just wanted to commemorate also our Natalie Christopher, who suddenly passed away a year and a half ago on an accident, but she promoted peace through her knowledge of astrophysics, and showing to the people making the presentations of how the world looks like, from the eyes of an astrophysicist, the huge universe. And then we are so tiny, if you can, the Earth is just a part of it. And Cyprus is so tiny, you cannot even see Cyprus on the map. I'm sorry for Cyprus to say that, and Nicosia and the neighborhood of Nicosia and the offices of the presidents, as if they are so important. Who cares? Who listens to them? I mean, the forces of the universe and the forces of of our conflict. So I just wanted to bring this into these dimensions and to commemorate Natalie. And really, as a civil society, something I was taught by the British university I was educated at. When I was 40, I left my children with my husband and ran away for a year. Thank you, English people, for your taxes, because your taxes have paid for my education. And I did write a dissertation on the Cyprus problem, and I had a special permission by late Mr. Denktash to live in the north for a couple of months. Anyway, I learned there that civil society cannot replace the government, but can be as powerful as a government, in a sense that it cannot take it can take decisions, it can implement projects that can affect people's lives. And I'm very concerned about these young people, young Greek Cypriots, young Turkish Cypriots all over the world who have careers, doctors, researchers, artists, singers, women coming together, to find a way to make them visible, to bring them together. I know we are a small island. The population is very small compared to the rest of the European countries, I guess, the big countries, but still we have the experts. We need to create this network. So that's also a possibility for you, Wilf, sisters, to help us out and to create these networks. And the foundation of this group that is still going on, and it is inspiring and it is motivating, it's not to serve our egos, it's to serve the community, it's to serve humanity. So I'm very pleased that we still preserve this value. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, for showing us the hope, and also a lot of homework that I think we have now, and how to reach out, the communities, both community living in the UK. Okay, so I think we should close our seminar, today's seminar. But is there anything that you want to make as a final comment from the panelists, Pembe? Oh, was that, sorry, you are just waving, yes. Anyone else wants to? Yes. Okay. Cecilia, do you have any announcement or anything before we?
No, I will repeat what I said at the beginning, which, at first, thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you to the speakers. It was, I think, for those of us who do not live in Cyprus or are not necessarily related to Cypriots or are members of the Cypriot diaspora, this was really enlightening, and I think we that's what we set out to do here at WILF UK. It was not just to talk about our own issues, but talk about the issues that are of women all around the world. So this is a great event, and I think a great success of that. And I will put the links that were in the chat as in the comment section of the YouTube video that will be sent to all of you. So if you do have any more links that you want to share with us and that need to be put in there that you think would be helpful, please do email the same email that has sent you the Zoom confirmation link, which is my email, and I'll be as reactive as I can be. and put them in the YouTube comment section. Other than that, we are trying to have similar events of the sort every month. So keep following us on social media to hear what comes next. I know that that Maki and I are really working behind the scenes on this, so thank you, Maki, for this publicly. And good. Have a good evening. And again, what a hopeful talk that we've just had. So wonderful to have you all with us.
Yeah, thank you again for all wonderful speakers, and we will keep our communication, and then develop our solidarity, and then trying to involve more people to promote peace. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.